spleen meridian hour. That's what I mentioned. Spleen meridian hour is where, spleen qi take over duty. And that's also the energy responsible for transportation and transformation, or in Chinese, what we call 运化. I mean transformation. Yeah? In Hdnj, the spleen and the lung. Now, where's the spleen and the lung? The spleen and the lung, right, belong to this system called 太阴经 system, or 太阴经 system. Never mind about 太阴、太阳、少阴、少阳 and the 厥阴 and the 阳明. For now, never mind about that, because we only need to know that when we go into the 12 meridian program, but not here. Okay, so this 太阴, simply to put it, basically means nourishing. It's meant for deeply nourishing, and both organs are involved in distributing vital substances. Lung is to distribute qi, right? And P is to distribute blood. Okay, so, and more than blood, later I'll explain. So the spleen plays a very foundational role. So think of the spleen as the factory's early production stage. It takes the food pre-processed by the stomach, extract out all the essence, that means the qi and the blood also, and then distribute it specifically to the muscle and tissues under the skin. Chinese called 奏理, but never mind the details here. Because just know that spleen will extract out from the food and then distribute out, to the muscles and to the tissues. And usually they are found under the skin. So while the lung handles the nationwide shipping, the spleen does the crucial sorting and packing first. Next, the spleen has an external reflection on the lips. So what does that mean? If you don't know whether your spleen is okay, not okay, look at the lips. That's why TCM, physician, like to look at your lips also. If your spleen function of transformation and transportation is strong, your lips will tend to appear moist, plump, and smooth in color. So if it's dry, and there's some tear along the way, that means your spleen function is weak. Also, you may have dry lips, pale lips, or torn lips. Lips that look very thin. Have you seen people lips very thin or shrunken like that? It means the spleen is weak. So there are a lot of dashboard on our body, on the external part, and we can use the dashboard to see what's inside. So these are not just cosmetic issues. They are signs that our body may not be digesting and distributing nutrients properly. Think of it this way. If the soil, your digestive system, is dry and weak, the flower, which means your lips, cannot bloom nicely. The spleen also governs all the muscle of the body. Muscle governed by the spleen. So that's right. So your ability to feel strong, grounded, and energized is closely related to the health of your spleen. Spleen is another one very important organ. So what happens when your spleen out of balance? You have weak muscles, you have general fatigue, you have low energy, even after resting, even after eating. So in Hdnj, we say this is due to a disharmony in the spleen and stomach, which are the key organs responsible for digesting the food, transforming it into qi and blood. So imagine your body as a car. If the engine doesn't process fuel properly, the car doesn't move efficiently. So your spleen is like the engine of the car. If you cannot process the petrol nicely, the whole body can't move, can't function efficiently. Right? And one more thing, the spleen. In elderly people, you might notice their eyelids start to droop, becoming heavy and saggy. So beside aging is also spleen signal. Why? Because another function of spleen's job is to lift and hold things up. That's why spleen, if you talk about trigram, is a 艮卦. Stomach is 坤卦. Alright, so this is spleen. And if you have learned 8 trigram, you know 艮卦 is used to support things. So why your eyes can look nicely, why your cheek can mean support looks nice, why your face never droop down one side or both get lifted up very nicely when you're young, and why for example maybe women breast start to sag, not enough support, right? It's because this support energy has weakened. Okay, this support energy means the spleen energy has weakened. And therefore, when you see someone, right, suddenly the face droop down or the eye suddenly one side droop down, that means the support energy is not there or the spleen energy imbalance. So need to take a closer look at the spleen meridian. Okay. Alicia said, shoulder pain, what meridian or organ is associated? All right. So shoulder pain, you have to do troubleshooting. Why I say that? There are various forms of shoulder pain. That's like headache. There are various forms of headache. And depending on that different form of headache, it comes from different organs. Same thing with shoulder pain. Now, you may have to differentiate a little bit. For example, there are some kind of shoulder pain that, you can't do the army salute. Putting a hand up, put onto your eyebrow there and salute, do that saluting action. If you can't do that saluting action, it is one organ that is actually affecting why you cannot bring up. Okay. And there's another one is that you cannot lift up horizontally. Where was I? Okay. When I say lift up horizontally means lift up like that. You cannot lift up 90 degree. That is another organ. We need to go and do some research. And another type of shoulder pain is you cannot put your arms behind and then touch your shoulder blade. You can't. You can't even bend behind. And when you can't bend behind, that is another kind of organ. Okay. So far what I could recall was that if you cannot bend your arm behind, that is small intestine. So how to do troubleshooting? That's why you don't have to know everything. You don't have to memorize everything, but you just have to remember the key things that I tell you. Remember that's how we talk about the meridian, for example, stomach meridian, where it runs. So you look at the pain point area, you see which meridian is actually running to the area there. Because recently I've done some research on the shoulder pain that when you can't raise up to the back. And when I trace it, I trace it all the way to the small intestine meridian. So I help a friend who had that problem. So I trace it to small meridian. So I use the small meridian what do you call it? Meridian spot of small intestine, and I asked him to go and massage there every day, and it helped to ease that part. Today, this friend is able to put his arm behind, no problem. Is that okay, Alicia? So you have to trace the pain, trace the meridian, and see which meridian actually run to the area of pain. All right, can't bend behind. Okay, you can Google and say 小肠经的止穴. The splin's job is to lift and hold things up, including your muscles and even your internal organs. So when it weakens, things start to sink down because of gravity. And that includes your eyelid, your energy level, and your muscle tone. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the spleen, not just in digestion, but in your thoughts and emotion. 黄帝内经, the spleen also governs thoughts. This means your ability to focus, your ability to analyze, and your ability to connect ideas comes from the energy of the spleen, because spleen, the function is to transform, is to convert into usable energy. So if you talk about learning, learning, for example, studying, you can absorb data, you can absorb information, but are you able to transform them into usable wisdom? That's another thing. If you can't do that, then your spleen could be weak or imbalanced. Okay, so if your spleen is strong, your mind tends to be very clear, very agile, and pick up things very fast. Not only pick up things very fast, is able to convert very fast. Also, if you overthink or you worry too much or get mentally stuck, you start to drain your spleen energy too. And this is what we call spleen deficiency.